We're live.
Hello. This is the first episode of the Swishing and Dishing podcast. I'm one half of your hosts. I'm Gavin, and this is our first episode. We're starting at the beginning of an NBA career, the draft, and we'll be going from here. So I'd like to introduce my co-host, Andrew Padyk.
Hello.
So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Um, so let's get into it.
Let's.
First pick, I don't think there's a doubt about it. It's got to be Towns.
It's at this point. It's Towns is going to Minnesota. Even today, when they interviewed him about the draft, he dropped a "we" when he was speaking of Minnesota.
There you go. I don't
It's
even think there's a conversation. I mean, there's if if Minnesota did anything else with that pick, I think that even Okafor, like I see the pluses to Okafor. His offense obviously would help maybe more than Towns's offense right away, but I don't think there's a really a conversation for it. And then you have a really, really, really young core, Rubio being the only guy who's not like younger than 22, and he's only like 23 or 24.
Pekovic too.
And Pekovic, yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously like Garnett and stuff like that, like some of the veterans that fell out the roster, but like you have Shabazz Muhammad, Rubio, Kevin Martin, Andrew Wiggins. You'd have Towns, you have Georgia Jang, Zach Levine, Bennett, Adrian Payne. Like that's a lot of young guys.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there's it wouldn't it wouldn't shock me if they picked Okafor, but I just don't think that it would happen.
At this point, it's open and shut. The staff for Minnesota was all about Towns. It was only Flip Saunders that was the only contrarian to drafting Minnesota to drafting Minnesota, drafting Towns. Although I did like in the beginning when people were like, yeah, they could go Russell and they could just throw a whole curve into the draft. But
That
at
was
this point,
literally the worst report ever. They would if unless they like could get if they could get back into the top 10 with like by trading Rubio, then maybe, but I don't whatever. That was the funniest one.
but speaking of trades, they apparently a day ago they either are saying they're making Anthony Bennett available or they have made him available for trade.
I don't necessarily. Yeah, I think I saw that too, but I don't know what teams logically would really trade for him. I mean, he doesn't seem like broken. Like it doesn't seem like there's anything about his game that's like off. He just looks like he is just like not that good. Like tough to say. I mean, he's young still, but I mean that pick was weird when the Cavs made it, and it's like it's still the more that he plays, the less it makes sense.
Big DMP.
The big DMP in his first season, and then last season, I mean, he got way more minutes, and he's still. I kind of think he's a little undersized to be a four, but that's the position that they played him at. Maybe, but he seems like too slow to be a three. Like I don't think that he could guard a lot of the threes. Like he couldn't guard Paul George or like Kawhi or LeBron. Like he's
Right.
just too big. So
Okay.
I think it's open shut for them, and I think they're definitely gonna go Towns.
Yeah, it's welcome to Minnesota, Carl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, I hope he
Enjoy
doesn't
the
end
Mall
up
of
going
America.
there. So second pick, I think this one's interesting.
This
Um,
is very interesting.
Mainly because we won't know probably till post draft if this is going to the Kings or not, but we'll get into that. I think that if the pick is going to the Lakers, it's still really interesting. I mean, they could go Okafor, they could go Russell. People have been throwing around Pourzingis. So I don't know. I think that they'll go Okafor. Um, because
I,
I think that they're closer to a league average point guard in Jordan Clarkson than they are a league average center in Jordan Hill.
I have on mine Okafor too, with the pretty much the same sentiment. Although I'm very curious as to what they'll do with Randall if they keep Ja and Randall together. Both don't have an ability to hit a jump shot, but both are pretty good defenders. Okafor, much better defender than Randall in this case.
Yeah, it's their skill sets sort of they would be playing. I mean, it's kind of perfect for Kobe because they're not going to be running down the floor. I mean, it's gonna be a slow team.
Yeah.
At that point, you might as well just go get Wade and be like, "Hey, we're putting together the slowest basketball team in the NBA. You want to come join?" Because the two of them, I mean, they can't. There's not a lot of space, and they both operate essentially in the same area of the floor. I'm not sure that the pick really allows them to go. Like, I don't think they could go Russell or even Pourzingis. I just think that it might be a reach, and not to mention, like, there's so many point guards that they're gonna look at, or just guards that they're gonna look at in free agency.
They also have the other. They also have another pick in the first round too, if they want to look at guards as well.
Yeah, and you're looking at like, and they have what? They have 27
The 27th.
and 34. Like, you could get Terry Rozier at that point, and he's pretty good at points. So
Yeah.
I don't think that they need to go. I think that the talent, you'll figure out Randall and Okafor, but I don't think that you can pass up the talent that Okafor brings.
Definitely. Certainly has a higher upside too.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a really good chance that Okafor never develops like like a strong defensive game. Like, he's an okay rebounder.
Yeah.
Even still, like, he's gonna, if you have him on your team, you're just, especially if you're essentially starting a rebuild next year. I think they're just gonna kick the tires this year for Kobe's last season. I could also see Kobe getting hurt or not playing the whole season.
This Lakers season's not going to be let's just say a spectacular one.
Yeah, the interesting. Well, we'll talk about the Cousins thing.
Yeah.
So we both have Okafor at 2. So then this one, third pick, which is probably going to make. I think it's going to change. If the Sixers take Russell, then I think that the rest of the draft could get really, really, really interesting. If they take Pourzingis, though, I think the draft goes. I think it like pretty much goes chalk that it's Russell, and then everybody else in that weird mix of Mario Hazonia, Mudiay, Winslow, all in the top 7 in some order. What do you think they should do? You think they should take Russell? You think they should take Pourzingis?
Well, on my notes, the first thing that I wrote down was I don't know what goes on in the mind of Sam Hinkie. And then after that, I wrote down the pick. I wrote down Russell for Philly. They need a point guard. That was the reason why I did the pick. But
need a point guard. It's hard to look at them and be like, yeah, take another big guy.
But at the same time, like, I don't like. They could go with Russell at the same time they could go with Porzingis. I just don't know what Hinkie's going to do tomorrow.
I'm not even sure Hinkie knows what Hinkie's going to do tomorrow. I guess we'll find out relatively quickly, because I think that if Minnesota takes any amount of time longer than like 1 second to send in that pick that they're taking Towns, it's like just an insult. And I think that the Lakers might take a little while, but I think they're going to ultimately end up taking Okafor. But I don't think that the first 2 teams are going to be on the clock very long, so we'll figure it out pretty quick. The thing is that, like, Philly has so many picks in the second round that, like, you're not 5 in the second round. You're probably not going to get a starter level big guy or wing.
No, it's mostly looking at like the predictions for the second round. There's a lot of guards still available.
So the interesting thing that they could do is that I think that if they're going to take a point guard or a wing, which I think that the wing might even be more important, they should maybe trade down and go with someone like Hazonia or Moutier later and see if they can pry somebody away from the Magic. I mean, the Knicks would probably trade up, but I don't think that they would want. I mean, it's like the difference of one pick.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the Knicks even have anybody that they would really want. Maybe Tim Hardaway, but I don't even think that. And everybody else, I mean, like that's just not going to happen. So I think that like the smart thing for them to do is to look at Orlando and maybe see if they could take their pick, even if they get like someone that's not even that impactful. Just because if you pick Russell at 3 and Russell's a bust, like people are gonna freak.
Yeah. The thing with Russell is his offense is pretty good.
Yeah.
It's his defense that's the main concern. The
Well,
76ers can mitigate that,
yeah, especially with
but
Noel
it
in
could
the
still be an
middle.
issue.
But I think that like need base, I mean, they could even go for a reach here and I think like just take Hazonia and just make it easy because like you can figure out the point guard later, but I don't think there's like the wing thing is really interesting. It's just like, do you take a wing because that's seemingly where that team is going.
Has oh, go ahead.
To sort of just like copy the rest of the league, and then they're just gonna go pace and space.
Yeah.
And like at that point, your point guard doesn't even really matter. The wings are the most important players. Wings that can knock down shots, and Hazonia seems to be that guy.
Have the 76ers said anything about trading their pick leading up to the draft?
I don't think they have. Not as openly as the Knicks have. I mean, the Knicks have been talking about moving down. But I don't think that they've really talked about it too much, no.
I do know that yesterday the Celtics tried to trade Marcus Smart to the 76ers for a pick.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. If they probably would have pulled the trigger if he had any offense in him.
Yeah.
Other than drives. I mean, I don't like dislike his game, but if they're talking about the third pick, no way.
No. I think it was for like more picks in the second round.
Well, Boston has all those picks in the next couple of years, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. I think that if the Sixers don't trade the pick, which I don't, I mean, they could. It would make sense for them to trade the pick. I mean, they love stockpiling. This way they get a still. I could see the Knicks and the Sixers doing the same thing, like trading, flipping with Orlando, Sacramento, Denver. Probably not lower than 7. I would be really disappointed. We'll get to the Knicks, but I would be disappointed if the Knicks traded out of the top 7.
That's a thing though. Like looking at like 5, 6, and 7 in the draft order, to me, those are the most interesting picks.
Yeah, like Hazonia, Moutier, and Winslow might be a more like a closer to a sure thing than Russell, Pourzingis, and Okafor. Like I think Towns is clearly the man at the top, and I think that Okafor and Russell are going to be really good. But I think that there's a really good chance that one of those 3 players, Hazonia, Moutier, and Winslow, is going to be a superstar, and one of those 3 players, Pourzingis, Russell, and Okafor, might be a bust.
Right.
But I mean, all sense tells you that they're going to take Russell. We both agree on that, but Philadelphia is a weird place.
Very.
as we've learned in the past couple of years. So at 4, thought about this one a lot because I'm a Knicks fan and thinking about it all season, and this is not in no world that I think that I would be talking about Kristaps Porzingis at 4 for the Knicks. That's probably because I like tricked myself into thinking that the Knicks would have a top 2 pick and get Okafor or Towns or something like that.
Yeah, that lottery night was a tease.
That lottery night was rough, and then Byron Scott's wink just like that was a raid spiral. I think that like the Knicks should pick down. If those 3, they should trade down. If Russell Okafor and Towns are all off the board, I think I don't see the point in taking Pourzingis. I mean, he's like a project. I think he's the closest thing to a project in the top four picks. So
Well,
like, is he gonna develop by the time that Melo's like in the next 5 years? I mean, 4 years. I mean, probably, but I don't know. He makes me nervous, obviously, because I haven't seen him play really. I know little to nothing about him other than he can shoot threes and like block shots. But I can't see him like if any NBA player tried to post him up, like I can't see him holding his position. He weighs like as much as like he weighs less than LeBron James, and he's 7 feet tall.
he's also a stick too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's just so thin. I can't see him like going toe to toe. Like, can you picture like LaMarcus Aldridge like trying to post up Porzingis like that?
Oh God.
No way. Or like Zach Randolph, one of those like big guys that they just bully him around. So I think that it makes more sense, especially because you re-sign Melo. If you didn't re-sign Melo, maybe you have Porzingis there, and maybe he makes the most sense. But you do. So I think that it makes a ton of sense to try to trade down 6 or 7. Maybe get somebody from Denver. 7 makes me nervous because then you're probably going to be stuck with the last really impactful guy. Because I think after 7, it really drops off. I mean, like you got Stanley Johnson, Cauley Stein, maybe Decker, Bobby.
The draft class changes tremendously
So I think
into the 8-9 range.
I think they can't get out of 7. If they go, I think 6 is perfect, but I just don't know. I don't know why Sacramento would trade up to 4 because I don't think that they'd want Pourzingis. Maybe if they were going to draft Hezonja at 4, but I'm not sure.
On mine, I wrote question marks because I have either Winslow or Pourzingis. Pourzingis had his last workout in Las Vegas. He actually
it was just to the Knicks, right?
I'm not sure, but he actually a lot of people said it was a really great workout, and he showed off his footwork and showed that he has the skill set. But at the same time, like, do the Knicks really want to invest in possibly a 3 to 4 year building process to make him fill out?
People say that he has to put on at least like 25 pounds of muscle to be effective in the NBA, which is like that's not an easy thing to do. If it was, he would already have it, like so that's going to be an uphill battle for them.
The other thing too with the muscle is he has to put on muscle at his core. Like if it was just his arms, like okay, that's not a problem, but it's everything.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. He's a scary looking player when you see him because he's just so thin, and it's like I don't know. I've just never seen an NBA player that thin at that position.
Yeah.
I think that it just, but I do think that the reaching for Winslow at the 4, and I've sort of talked myself into this because of the Knicks. Once they were going to be at the 4, I thought that they should go Winslow. I think that that's a great reach for them.
Yeah.
I think that Winslow would be really, really good, and I think that gives you a ton of versatility, and it also takes a lot of pressure off Melo. Because he doesn't have to defend the main guy. Like he probably doesn't have to in the East. He probably doesn't have to defend anybody that's like really that good. Like he doesn't have to defend LeBron anymore. He doesn't have to defend D Wade. He doesn't have to defend Paul George.
Right.
He doesn't have to defend Jimmy Butler, who I think is the comp to Winslow. I mean, like if in 4 years we're looking at Winslow and he's like Jimmy Butler and he's not on the Knicks, I'm gonna be really pissed because like he's such a good player. I just think that his body and his drive is like really crazy too. So I think that reaching for him at 4 would not be a crazy thing.
No, it's pretty ideal too because he could play multiple positions. He could fit in the triangle offense with ease. And on the defensive end, that multiple position thing comes in handy too. just looking at what happened to Melo the past few years on defense, it's really an added bonus.
Yeah, I mean, Melo's not a terrible defender. I mean, but
Yeah, but
he's not close to an elite defender, and he's not. I mean, he might be an average defender. But I think that the chance of playing Winslow at the 2 and Melo at the 3, or Winslow at the 3 and Melo at the 4, that gives you a lot of options. Also, that opens up a ton of space if you get a shooter. If you get a shooter in free agency, you could really space it out. And if you get a point guard shoot, you could really space it out with Melo and the point guard on the wings, and Winslow could be your cutter. So I think I think that is like my favorite pick for the Knicks at 4. I mean, if Russell's there, then the Knicks take Russell that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
That's been clear. But I just don't know if Russell's going to be there, and it doesn't look like they're going to trade up, because why would they?
Depends so much on what the 76ers do.
Yeah, the 76ers are going to be super huge. The thing is that the only thing about if you have Winslow and Melo is there's really not much time left for Hardaway. I mean,
yeah,
he might be virtually worked out of the offense or out of the team in general. So that'll be interesting to watch. Apparently, there's SB Nation reported that or said, it's not necessarily a report because it might be a rumor, but that Detroit has interest in Hardaway. I don't know what they'd be offering. I don't even know who's on their team that they don't really care about, that they'd be willing to trade for a 30% career 3-point shooter, but I guess we'll find out. But yeah, I think that Winslow would be the dream. A bunch of people think that they should also take Hezonja too.
I don't agree with that. That's
his skill set really overlaps with Melo.
Yeah. The other reason I don't agree with that is if Winslow's the ideal reach, then Hezonja may be too much of a reach at 4.
I think so as well. I don't think that you can if you traded down and Hezonja, if you traded to with Denver,
yeah,
then maybe that makes sense if you're sitting at 7 and he's the last guy. Like, all right, that's not a terrible consolation prize. But at 4, I think it's too much of a reach. But I guess the last guy we got to talk about for the Knicks is Mudiay.
Yeah.
Because he obviously fills the need. That's the thing, is as I watch Mudiay, I can't not see Westbrook, which is the comp that everybody makes. But as I think, like, I don't know, he makes me nervous yet again because I didn't see him in college. But he really does. The way he plays does look a lot like Westbrook.
I still like with Mudiay, how much. Well, actually, let me rephrase this. The thing with Mudiay for me is just that, like, it's that thing that we never really got a chance to fully see it, other than these clips that are now circulating from when he played in China. That he looks a lot like Westbrook in the comparison, but how much can he do it now in the NBA going forward?
Yeah, I mean, Larry Brown loves the guy.
Yeah, as evident by recruiting him.
Yeah, and he said recently too that if Moody had played in college, that he would be the number 1. He'd be the number 1 pick without a doubt. I don't know about that. I mean, because you tend to take the once in a lifetime center first, no matter what. But I don't know. I feel like he's really fallen. I don't know. He worked out with the Knicks, but he doesn't seem to be in any conversations with the Knicks.
No.
He doesn't really come up. But that's another one if they could. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with him, because he really felt. I mean, a lot of people have him as the 4th best player in the draft. So I don't really see why all of a sudden Pourzingis has totally taken that spot, but there must be a reason. I mean, but he's so athletic. It's hard to like not look at that and be like, oh my gosh, this guy could be really good. But the thing is that the jumper, not necessarily where you want it to be if you're taking a guy at 4. But enough Knicks talk. We'll commiserate
Yeah.
once that pick gets made.
It's time to move on to the fifth pick. Orlando and their very strange rebuilding.
I think that like Hazonia is the perfect fit for them because you can slot him in at the 3 with Peyton and Oladipo in the backcourt, and he's instant offense.
This was another one that I struggled with, like going back and forth between the fourth and looking at the fifth pick. I wrote down Hazonia, cross out. I wrote down Winslow, cross that out. And now I'm just flip flopping between the two for the Magic.
Pourzingis even makes sense for them if he's still there, because then you could pair him with Vucevic, and then you have 2 shot blockers, but a guy that can shoot the 3. You sort of go build the team around Pourzingis' offense because you already have the defense.
Yeah,
I'm not totally sure on the Winslow one. That would give them a lot of defenders. I just don't know how much offense is there. Between Oladipo and Peyton and Winslow. I mean, there's a lot of cutting, but I don't think there's a lot of shooting there. So it could take up space really, really, really quickly.
Yeah, it's a good point. I don't know. I was looking last night and today at the draft boards, and everyone has a different pick for the Magic.
Yeah, that's because no one I don't know any reporter or analyst that knows what the Magic is doing. Their rebuild makes no sense.
No, it doesn't.
And I mean, maybe Vucevic is just the guy. Maybe Possibly. They just maybe he's the centerpiece of that team, and they're just gonna. I have no idea, but maybe he's just their guy. They're kind of hard to peg. I'll be surprised no matter what happens at 5 because I think that it starts to get dicey there. I mean, it starts to get dicey at 4. I mean, I think that I would be very shocked if Russell wasn't, if the draft went Towns, Okafor, Russell, and then I have I can think about fits that would be good for teams, but I don't really know past that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the Magic are treating this as like a research and development pick to see where their identity will be going into next year's draft or even into free agency for this offseason. But I don't know.
If Boogie's there, if they're keeping Boogie, who do you take?
Who, the Magic or wait, who?
The Kings. Sorry, Sacramento.
Oh, Sacramento?
Yeah.
I put down Hazonia because Vlade wants a Peja Stokovic type player, and to him, in the reports that have come out, he thinks Hazonia is that type player.
So you don't go Moutier? You think that they're closer? Because that's the thing is they have McLemore and McLemore. Yeah, Ben McLemore and Stauskas at the wing. So you'd be either moving one of those guys up or moving one of those guys down.
Stauskas.
R.I.P. Bill. Yeah, I don't know because I think that they're that Collison is a fine point guard. So a lot of people have Moutier going on the Kings, but I don't necessarily know if that's the best choice. I thought that Cauley Stein was a player for the Kings, but with this ankle thing, which we'll talk about, maybe he's not. I don't know. I think that Hazonia does make a lot of sense because it gives them another shooter and more space for Boogie. If Boogie's not there, I think they should go Moutier, and then if they get another pick, but we'll talk about that.
Right.
Yeah. So I have a guard there or a wing. So
only problem with Moutier is he refused to work out for Sacramento.
Well, apparently Winslow did too. Actually, they weren't sure. I mean, that's the thing. Speculation is that people like Zach LaVine stopped working out for teams. Range was last year because his range was so high that he was missing. He was doing 25 workouts, and Moutier's worked out for a ton of teams as well. Winslow as well.
Yeah,
I could see them just canceling because I've worked out for 10 teams already.
Mm-hmm.
But I could also see it as that team's a circus. So who would really want to um who would really want to go, like, what coach, player, NBA prospect would want, or is looking at the Kings right now and being like, wow, that's where I want to play my NBA career. Like, even
Yeah.
guys that are set, like even Russell and Okafor, they're just saying they just want to play in the NBA. Like, even they can't be looking at that team and being like, yeah, I'd love to play there. I mean, it's just impossible that anybody's looking at that team with what's happening right now with a guy who had a great season. I mean, like, Boogie had a fantastic season, and you figure that out. But we'll talk about that.
The situation's getting weirder and weirder each day, and it looks like the Kings may be becoming the 2013 Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, and it honestly, like, you're already in a not so attractive location. Like, this could be happening in LA. If this is happening to the Lakers, I mean, this has happened to the Lakers. The Dwight episode was a circus as well. And when they tried to re-sign him and Kobe's issues and stuff like that, and it didn't tarnish LA because it's LA. But this whole Sacramento thing, I mean, it's like, you got to be, if you're Randaviv, you've got to be really mad at George Karl and really mad at Vlade Divac, because, like, these guys they can't, this can't happen.
They're not on the same page at all.
It just looks so bad for them as a franchise that the general manager and the coach, less than 12 hours from each other, one says that they want to trade Boogie and the other says that Boogie's untouchable. He's the only person on the roster that's untouchable, which is probably the worst thing that you can say. Is like, oh yeah, that one guy, he's the untouchable one.
Yeah.
Because, like, where does that, and now they want to trade Rudy Gay, which is a terrible idea because you have this guy on a really good contract. He's going to be a steal for another team if they trade him. He's exactly what Boogie needs. He spaces the floor. He gives you 3-point shooting. I don't know. We'll talk about them.
Yeah, this is
7.
One more thing about the Kings. Literally, the Kings situation could be an entire episode on its own.
Oh yeah, this whole Kings thing is like, you could have an episode just on, like, George Karl player mutinies.
Oh, big time.
Or, like, stars that can't mesh with George Karl. Why they even thought that George, I get that he's, like, a really fantastic coach, but why in the world you were like, let's pair George Karl with
Boogie Cousins.
That's just insane.
Yeah. Anyway,
Denver. Let's talk Denver.
Nuggets. Time for them to draft some Nuggets. I have Moutier at 7 going to Denver.
You don't see an overlap with Lawson, or you see them dealing Lawson?
I see them dealing Lawson.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You want to do a hot take on where Lawson's going?
Again, no, I don't want to do that hot take right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, like, who gives up assets for point guards anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it. But I think that Denver should. I know that they weren't good last season, but 2 seasons ago they made the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should go hard reset. I think that they should just trade away everybody, because you're not gonna, especially because, like, in the West now, you're just so far off from, like, even the 8th best team.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in Denver, you're so far off from, like, the Pelicans. And not to mention, that was, like, essentially, we could probably slot out the Trailblazers of next season's playoffs and slot in the Thunder. And I think that those are going to be the same. I think it's going to be 7 same teams. Only I don't think that the Trailblazers are going to be in the playoffs next year. And I think that the Thunder obviously are. But, like, you're so far off from all those teams if you're Denver, or if you're Sacramento, or if Sacramento, I mean, if they keep Boogie and, like, build the team, they could be really good. But I don't think that even with Boogie, like, that's the thing, is that a lot of people are talking about Boogie as this like stats guy that he's never going to contribute to wins. It's like, well, don't just look at Boogie for that. Like, look at the conference that he's playing in. Do you expect him to beat the Warriors? do you expect them to beat the Thunder? Do you expect them to beat the Spurs? Do you expect them to beat the Mavericks? I mean, Mavericks could be really bad next year as well, so I don't want to say, but there's like, you have to understand the timelines. And I think if you're Denver, it's like you're not even the 10th best team in the West.
Oh God, no. If they just pretty much dismantle the whole thing, do they keep Nurkic though?
Yeah, they keep Nurkic. That's the one guy you keep.
That was the only thing I was wondering.
Oh yeah. No, you keep Nurkic because he's young, and then you just start with Nurkic and whoever they get in this draft. Because like that's the thing. At 7, you could get an impact player like Winslow or Moutier, but you could also just be getting a role player, and it's like you don't need role players until you get a star, like as Boston showed this year.
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see, I guess, but I could see them going. Apparently, Hezonia's dad just came out and said that he doesn't think that Denver would be a good place for him. So I don't know if that's if he negged them on that, and maybe if Hezonia isn't picked by 7, he won't be picked by Denver, but maybe they will anyway. I mean, look at Isaiah Thomas and the Pistons. I mean, Isaiah Thomas said that he didn't want to play for the Pistons, and he ended up winning 2 championships. So maybe you don't even care about stuff like that. But yeah, no, I found the Nuggets. I'm like not trying to get. I'm trying to either hit a home run with somebody, or maybe even just trade that pick. It's hard if you're in the West. It's just so hard. Like, how do you? I don't know. How do you take talent? Like, literally, the 8 teams that made 8 teams are going to make the playoffs, and they're not even going to be the 10th. Because the Suns are better than them, unless the Suns are also resetting because they've been dangling Eric Bledsoe, which is insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if it's a hard spot for Denver, I think.
Apparently, though, just looking at this because I got interested looking at this article. It's not just only Lawson they're dangling right now in the market; they're also dangling Fareed, and apparently in May there were reports saying that the Nuggets are starting to look to reset, starting with this draft. So it could be a beginning process.
They definitely should. It's just they're not. The core of those players, while they are nice players, like Lawson, Nurkic, Fareed, and Wilson Chandler, like that's a start. Like those are starters on nearly every NBA team, except for obviously like the super deep ones. But they're just so far off.
Yeah.
They need to just reset and just decide who's going to be the best pairing for Nurkic. I had if Winslow's still there,
take Winslow.
I say they take Winslow because then you have the beginnings of a really good defense, and the pick and rolls that he and Nurkic could run would be really good.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, where the draft gets significantly less interesting. But just because I don't think that there are any really like heavily impactful players other than Cauley-Stein. I really do think that he's going to be really fantastic one day. I have just to go through them quick. I have Stanley Johnson going to the Pistons. I had Willie Cauley-Stein going to the Hornets, but that is probably not going to happen. Decker for the Heat, Portis for the Pacers, Miles Turner for the Jazz, Booker for the Suns, and Cameron Payne for the Thunder. So you don't have to address all those, or just give me your picks and I'll let you know.
Okay. So my picks that I got, I have Devin Booker going to Detroit, Willie Trill going to Charlotte, Stanley Johnson going to Miami, Miles Turner, Indiana, Frank Kaminsky, Utah, Trey Lyles, Phoenix, and Cameron Payne, Oklahoma City. To clear.
There's none of those that I disagree with. I mean, like obviously Detroit's getting a shooter.
Yeah,
that's clear.
The thing with Detroit though is SVG said that they may not draft for a position; they may draft for the best player available at that point.
Interesting. I also heard that they're thinking about Decker because Decker had a really good workout for them. And not to mention he does sort of fill their need. So we'll see. I think that the Cauley Stein thing could go Booker or Cauley Stein.
Yeah.
Obviously Charlotte was talking about shooters and they traded away Lance, so they have a need for the two. Yeah, Lance.
Yeah, that
LOL.
trade.
That
That
made
trade was not. Yeah, that trade.
the Clippers are going to be one hell of a team next year. Personality wise, you already have two players that allegedly hate each other because everybody apparently hates Chris Paul, and then you bring in Lance Stevenson. That's like a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Way to go, Doc. But I think that Cauley Stein makes sense for the Hornets. But I think that this ankle thing, I guess we could talk about it now.
Yeah, let's just address it now.
Yeah. So Cauley Stein has apparently an ankle issue that has scared off some teams. Which I guess makes sense because he's big and
Yeah.
a leg problem for a big man. Could be worrisome.
Did he have this problem when he was with Kentucky?
It apparently happened last. I think it happened in 2014, that tournament.
Okay.
I think he got surgery on it. He played the whole season last year. So obviously he could play on it, but I think they said it wasn't healing properly. It was ankle thing. He got surgery on it. It wasn't fully healed, which they're worried about. NBA teams are worried about. The thing is that he played the whole season, so he's obviously not that hurt. Unless they're thinking long term, which I guess makes sense if you're, taking a player in the top, 14. But he makes sense for so many teams, and he is literally the center for the new NBA.
Mm-hmm.
If you had him on the floor in the finals and you're Cleveland, he's a 7-footer you don't need to take off because he can guard 1 through 5. I mean, he literally switched on to point guards all the time last year, and he defended them well. It's not like he didn't do a good job. Like, he's got that lateral quickness and stuff like that. I don't know if he'll ever be good on defense or on offense, but he's going to be really good on defense for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you're Charlotte, the pick makes sense, even if he is hurt, because, like, yet again, you're still a couple pieces away.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to be in the playoffs last year, or this year, I guess. But they weren't. So they're obviously, I mean, like, and then you also have a bit of defense there too with Kid Gilchrist and Cauley Stein, the Kentucky connection as well. They probably know each other. They all seem to know each other. Pretty well. Which I didn't know. Like, Okafor was saying that he like talks to Jabari all the time. It's like, I didn't know that these like guys, like, once they graduate or get drafted or whatever, they stay in contact with the next like round of players. I don't know. I just didn't know that.
Makes sense considering they're pretty much they're recruited and then leave, but they also recruit pretty much help the next guys come in.
Yeah. But so we'll see with Cauley Stein. But if Cauley Stein falls, and this is what I was saying before, is that if Cauley Stein falls, he could go to the Heat and he could go to the Pacers. But if he if he gets passed by both of those teams, I don't think he's going till past the lottery, because every team has him already, or not him, but the Jazz don't need him. They have Gobert. The Suns have Alex Len. I mean, maybe he's an upgrade over Alex Len. He's
an upgrade over Alex Len. Yeah, take that upgrade.
He's faster. Maybe the Suns take him, but I don't know what the Suns are doing because they're apparently trying to trade Eric Bledsoe. It's like their window is obviously different than I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. The Thunder could, but they already have a pretty hefty collection of big men with McGarry, Enes Kanter, and Steven Adams. So I don't think that they take him. Atlanta probably doesn't need him because Al Horford's pretty much a workhorse. He's only been hurt that one season, 2 seasons ago. Mm-hmm. So he could fall to the Celtics, who really need a player like him. Really, really, really badly, because all of their big guys can play on offense, but they suck on defense. So if he's at 16, I don't think the Celtics even think about it. But that would be a really far fall. That would be crazy. I mean, if that happened, the ankle thing would be real and worth. I mean, I don't even know who he worked out for. I'm not even sure.
I'm not sure either.
Another thing that I mentioned in my notes is that, and this was a I called it a dream scenario for the Bucks when I wrote my notes the other day. But after this came out, maybe it's not that much of a dream. If they draft him, they can like switch nearly every position 1 through 5. And you don't have to lean on Giannis to guard big guys anymore because Cauley-Stein can guard them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if there's any scenario where the Bucks can somehow get him, even if it means that they're going to be worse next season, or you just sit him out next season, because like what player are you going to get if you're the Bucks? It may be Trey Lyles if he's there, maybe that makes sense. But yet again, like Trey Lyles doesn't play a lot of defense either.
No,
but he really couldn't when he was at Kentucky because he was playing at the 3. So if he gets to the Bucks, I don't think or if he even gets close to the Bucks should be making phone calls like crazy to try to get him.
Mm-hmm.
Because yet again, like their window is longer than a lot of other teams in the East. Like I think that if I look like at the East, it's like the immediate windows as they are. It's like Cavs, Bulls, maybe the Heat, and like maybe the Wizards. But every other team is like kind of young or on the rise or not good enough. So like they kind of should try to. The Bucks should be peaking like post Cavs and Bulls.
Right.
And I think that they will. So if they could somehow, even if they have to give up somebody that, I mean, as long as you don't have to give up Jabari, Giannis, or I mean, I think that they're going to bring back Middleton.
Yeah.
They don't have to if they don't have to give up one of those 3 guys, I say like, or Carter Williams. I say like go get him because then you can switch 1 through 5 and you're like an incredible defense. But we'll see.
Yeah.
So is there any? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. One final thought about Cauley-Stein. His doctor did say there are no lingering issues with the foot and ankle. It's just sore right now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting storyline. And it's going to be fun to watch the draft as analysts probably make either something out of nothing or nothing out of something. We'll find out. Do you have any picks that you would like to talk about 14 through 30 that you find really interesting?
For the second half of the first round?
Yeah.
I have stuff for the Western Conference. One pick that I find interesting is 18, the Rockets drafting possibly a point guard.
Yeah, they kind of need one.
Yeah, especially after Beverly got hurt this season.
Yeah.
I really love the Clippers pick this year. Just saying. They don't have a pick.
Yeah, GM Doc got rid of all their picks to get his damn son. Who actually doesn't look that bad anymore. The only interesting pick that I have is the Cavs. I think if the Cavs got Justin Anderson, that'd be a steal.
Yeah.
At 24, he might be available, and he'd be really, really good in that offense. A shooter and a defender.
I don't know if he will be available at 24. I feel like Portland may come in and take him.
They're like 23, right? Or 20.
Yeah. They have the pick before the Cavs because Wes Matthews heading towards free agency. Aaron Aflalo opted out and headed towards free agency.
Yeah, they're kind of in shambles as well. I'm not sure if they'll be back in the playoffs next year. Especially if LaMarcus Aldridge leaves, they're not making the playoffs next year.
I have a feeling like next year they could be like meandering like middle of the pack, but not in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And but this season coming up, they'll be like, are we at the bottom of the playoff seeds, or is this now where we have to look forward to just start the rebuilding process. So I don't know.
One question: how far does Harrell go? I had
Harrell,
Harrell at 28, which I think is crazy because I think he's gonna be before that, but
I have him at 25.
25.
Memphis.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense for Memphis. I'm interested to see where he goes. I'm interested to see what happens to him because he's sort of. I think that he's like, he could be like Tristan Thompson, or he could be out of the league in like 4 years, and there's like no way to tell. I'm interested to see his career arc.
I have a feeling too. The pick with Memphis would be good. Zach Randolph's 34. Is turning 34 this offseason, but Harrell could get like a year or 2 years workout with Randolph, could really help his career going forward.
Yeah. I mean, Zebo's, I think Zebo's the perfect / worst mentor for Harrell because I think people have questions about Harrell's like drive and focus.
Mm-hmm.
And like Zebo's probably like the worst person for that.
It's a good point.
But as far as game wise goes, their games are like really compatible, and I think that Zebo would teach him a ton.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what happens, like chemistry off the court stuff with Zebo. I mean, Zebo's like, I'm not knocking Zebo, but people do say that he's like one of the lazier NBA players. I mean, just he looks like he's one of the few NBA players that looks like a football player. He's that doughy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Harrell's game could be great. A sort of a great way to supplement Zach Randolph as Zach Randolph eventually probably breaks down. I mean, he hasn't really.
Yeah.
I mean, Zach Randolph can't be that tired because it's not like he really does anything. He like backs into people in the post or just takes whole possessions off. But I love Zebo. He's a fantastic guy. I had Harrell falling to the Celtics, which
interesting.
If that happened, the Celtics should it should be one of those scenarios where it's like 1 second off the clock and they should call on the pick because he's exactly what they need. Like he's just so athletic and he's such a tenacious rebounder, he's not a rim protector. He's not big enough.
No,
he's not a buzzword rim protector. But if he fell to them, that would be a great pick for them.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's do some draft intangibles that are outside of the draft. So this whole Kings Lakers thing, the Boogie thing, we talked about it a little bit. Thoughts? What should they do now? If you're the Kings, like what do you do now? Do you just try to hope that winning fixes it, or do you think that you have to get rid of one of the guys, either Carl or Boogie?
I think at this point, the idea of hoping winning will fix it is nice, but with the way things are going, it looks like the Kings front office and George Karl, both of them, although at odds ends over this, are going to possibly look for some quick fix or some solution immediately.
What if you're let's do a little role playing here.
Right.
You're Vlade Divac. What offer would you take? You don't have to do the accent. It's fine.
Yeah. I couldn't do a Serbian accent if I tried.
It makes two of us. That's why I made you Vlade Divac. What if it is the two? Is Okafor for Cousins? Would you do that, or would you do Okafor and Randall for Cousins? Okafor, Randall, and Clarkson for Cousins?
I would do Okafor for Cousins, but possibly see if I could finagle a future pick out of the Lakers too.
Would you do it for the 2 and the 26, 7? What do they have? 7.
They have the 27.
Would you do it for 2 and the 27?
Huh. Possibly. Yeah, possibly.
I think I would. And I would see if I could trade Rudy Gay to anyone that'll take him. The interesting thing is if they could get a first round pick for Gay, which they might be able to do, because his contract is like fantastic for his production. I mean, I don't know what team. I think that a team like Chicago or Toronto obviously is not taking him back. The Wizards at 19. I mean, that might not be a terrible pick if they could also execute a 19 for Rudy Gay pick. Also, like the Celtics at 16, he's not like a terrible player. Even Atlanta at 15, like I would think about it. If I was Mike Budenholzer, like how much is the 15th pick going to help me? Rudy Gay, you can play him at the 4 and you space it out even more because he can shoot threes. If you're the Celtics, you're kind of looking for a guy. Maybe he could be the guy. Like I think that the jury is not out on that yet. But if you're the Kings and you can get 4 picks in the first round in this draft, I do it, especially even if it's Boogie for 3 of those picks. I think that's just especially because what they could do is with 2, they could take like Pourzingis or Russell, and then at 6, Stein,
possibly.
And like, I would be interested to see like what a guy like Pourzingis would do against a really good defensive center. Because you play him at the power forward, and then you have 2 guys that are like 7 feet tall. One of them can shoot threes. 2 of them can block shots. That would be very intriguing. And I think that if they're gonna trade him, I think that it has to be to the Lakers for 2. I don't think that they can trade him to the Celtics for whatever Celtics picks the Celtics have. I just don't think they're high enough.
No.
But I think if you can like sort of feel like you can replace his production eventually, then like just do that.
Yeah.
If you're the Lakers, would you give up? What would you give up? Clarkson, Randall, and the 2? Would you give up Randall and the 2 and the 27?
I feel like Randall is the more likely player to be given up than Randall and Clarkson, or just Clarkson.
Yeah.
He seems at this point possibly slightly more expendable.
Yeah, I mean, for the style of basketball he plays, he's not really big enough.
Although I wonder if teams would take the opinion of teams taking Randall would be, considering he got hurt badly last year and didn't really play much to begin with.
Yeah, he played like, did he even play? He played 2 games, 3 games, something like that.
I think he played like 4 games.
Yeah.
So
it's the Lakers are lucky because they get to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, they could know something about him. I mean, I'm not knocking his game at all. But they could know that they know exactly how valuable he is. I think if they can get Boogie, they should try for even whatever they have to give up, because they don't really have any long-term pieces. I mean, I'm not even sure Randall's a long-term piece. I mean, I think he's good. I really I didn't like that he went to the Lakers because I don't like the Lakers, but
no, I like Randall's game too. We've talked about this many times.
Yeah, he's fun. But I'm not sure that he's a long-term piece for the Lakers. As much as Boogie would be. So I think that whatever it is, they just do it. We sort of talked about Philly and the Knicks, their plans, because I think that both of them should think about trading down.
Yeah.
What is your most intriguing prediction for tomorrow night?
Most intriguing. I have a feeling there will be a trade in the middle of the draft that will change the later rounds, but that's the only prediction I could think of at the moment. I think something interesting will happen in the 7 to 5 pick range also.
I think so as well.
That's to me the most interesting area of the draft.
That was going to be mine. I was going to say that the Knicks or Sixers, and I was going to say that the Knicks, Sixers, Magic, Kings, and Denver will. Two of those will not be in the same places.
Right.
At the end of the night. So we'll see. What's the worst spot in the lottery? What do you think?
The Nets.
No. In the lottery.
Oh, the lottery. It's just I just immediately went to worst team. Never mind.
Oh, yeah. Worst spot is definitely the Nets. Like that Hawks thing is so lucky for the Hawks. They'll get like a good piece and have the best record in the East. And they'll need that piece. That's the interesting thing.
Yeah. They're just in draft purgatory, the Nets.
Oh yeah, they deserve it though. Can't make bad deals. I mean, that's the long and short of it.
Yeah.
If I was the Nets, I'd be looking to trade yet again anybody that can get me into the upper part of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Even if that's Plumlee or something. But what's the worst spot in the lottery?
Worst spot in the lottery. I have to say, I honestly don't like Miami's spot, and Phoenix to me is an interesting spot too.
We didn't talk about Phoenix. Maybe we should.
Yes.
Miami definitely has a chance to get a good player. But I think that it's unfortunate that they're picking right after the two teams that questionably have the biggest overlap with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that the Pistons, Hornets, and Heat all have the exact same needs. And if the Pacers were somehow 9 or 8, then it would make Miami a lot more comfortable.
Right.
But the Suns are super intriguing. Oh, where did you have Kaminsky going?
Utah.
Oh, Utah. Right. That'd be interesting. He'd sort of replace Cantor because you don't need him to play defense. That's apparent. Is that Gobert is going to play defense?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Yeah, the Suns are weird. I don't know. This whole Bledsoe thing is really interesting. That they've been trying to trade Bledsoe since May, which is insane.
The Suns situation got very weird this past season at the trade deadline.
Yeah, that they were they literally blew up a playoff team in the West. Apparently because they had to. And that's the thing is like, as a Knicks fan, I want Goran Dragic to come to the Knicks, and I think that it's possible that he could. That being said, he apparently was not very kind to the Suns because he said that if you trade Thomas, I'll stay. And then they traded Thomas, and he said, no, I want to trade too. Which is why they dealt both of them. So I'm interested to see what the Suns do if they trade Bledsoe, especially if they can trade Bledsoe to a team in the upper. The thing is if I was Phoenix, I don't know what would placate Boogie more than. Would you do Bledsoe for the 6th pick if you're either of those teams? Because they played together in college.
That does sound. I do like the sound of that trade. Yeah, I'd do that.
Because then, if you're the Suns, you get Moutier at 6. And
it improves their situation so much more too, because that team does have questions.
And then, if you're the Kings, you just placated Boogie, and you brought back one of his favorite players of all time that he's ever played with when he played with him in college.
Right.
I think that's an interesting thing. I didn't even think about that until just now, because I didn't even know that the Suns were trying to trade Bledsoe. But that would be interesting. Very, very interesting, and I'll be looking out for that. Wait, no. Did Bledsoe played for Kentucky, right? Or no. Bledsoe played for UCLA.
I know there was a Bledsoe in Kentucky.
I'm trying to think who came in. I'm gonna look it up. I'm trying to think who came in with Boogie, because it was John Wall, Boogie.
Bledsoe played 2009 to 2010 on Kentucky.
Yeah, he was with Boogie and Wall.
Yeah,
that team that almost won. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I didn't even think about that. Would it be? Do you think they'd swap picks, 13 and 6, and no, that wouldn't make any sense. Never mind.
No,
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
I forgot which order they were in.
Yeah.
I also think that like if Booker gets to 13, that might be a nice pick for the Suns because he
Yeah.
feels that they have like no guards or they have no point guards. They literally have Bledsoe and that's it. They traded away everybody else and they don't have one, and they have like 6 shooting guards. Their depth chart is insane.
Yeah.
Makes no sense. If they could get Kaminsky, maybe you go Kaminsky. But if they could get Cauley Stein, I think they also go Cauley Stein. I don't know. They were. If you had asked me like what would happen to the Suns in September, like I would have totally thought something 100% different than like what is actually gonna happen to the Suns now.
Right.
So last thing on Friday, what are we going to be saying about this draft? Fill in the blank.
Let's see. On Friday, we will definitely be saying something about the Kings. For sure.
Definitely about the Kings.
And definitely something about the Knicks.
Oh, yeah. Well.
Oh, yeah, that's a given.
Have something to say about the Knicks. And something about the Sixers, probably.
Yeah. But definitely the main focus will be on Sacramento on Friday, post-draft.
Yeah, I think that's where the focus is going to be for pretty much the rest of the offseason.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see what they do. At the All-Star break, what are we going to be saying about this draft?
Karl Anthony Towns filled out to be a good player.
And who's going to win Rookie of the Year at the end of next season?
I have not a clue.
Really? I think it's going to be Towns. I think it's definitely going to be Towns.
I don't do very, very in the far future picks.
I know. I'm just trying to have some fun. Or Russell. Russell could be, I don't know. Or it could be like Cameron Payne and we'll all be shocked.
Ooh.
Whatever happens, we'll all be shocked. But some people will pretend to be not so shocked.
What if it's Pourzingis?
If Pourzingis is the Rookie of the Year, I'm going to state this right now on the first episode of this podcast. If Pourzingis is the Rookie of the Year next year, I will buy a Pourzingis jersey, like an $80 Pourzingis jersey.
Oh, God.
Court-ready Pourzingis jersey if he is the Rookie of the Year next year.
Make it a sleeve jersey.
I will buy a Pourzingis sleeved, like, top-of-the-line jersey if he is the Rookie of the Year next year. Something to watch for.
Oh, God.
So this is a success. We'll be back next Monday. We're going to do a free agency primer, what all the teams should and shouldn't be doing in free agency now that we know what their draft plans were. So we'll be back then.
And post-draft breakdown, too.
Post-draft breakdown, obviously. We'll be talking all the things Sam Hinkie.
Speaking of which, I wonder if he's now out of his cave in Philadelphia.
This was the thing that I was wondering. How do you think he's getting to New York for the draft tomorrow?
Tunnel.
Billy, you see it? Yeah, you think
tunnel?
He's dug a tunnel.
Tunnel.
You know the thing that the huge machines that they used to build that's like drilled huge holes?
Yeah.
He's probably been slowly drilling one through New Jersey and doing all of his scouting reports from there. So this has been the first episode of the Swishing and Dishing podcast. Just want to say thank you to my lovely co-host.
And thank you to my lovely co-host too.
And we will see you guys. Keep seated for the draft. You never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's gonna be an exciting one.
Oh yeah, gotta love it every year.
And that will do it for us.
Bye.
Bye.